Well, for myself, I feel this contamination thing is very important. As I said before, we must have because this is our lifestyle, but it's also our job, and we don't want to be in a situation where you can be falsely accused of something that you have no control over. So the contamination question, I think, is very important for the moment. And then I think there's a few other things that it's important to make the sport interesting, sport of show jumping. I think it's very important to keep show jumping not too complicated to watch. When people turn on the if we're going to grow as a sport, I think it's important when people turn on the television, they must understand what's going on. It can't be too many different kind of competitions and rules and changing rules, because then people, they can't really follow, and then they will lose interest. So I think it's very important to keep, like football, for instance, it's always the same. You turn on television, you know the rules. Tennis is the same. You turn on television, you know the rules. Show jumping, for the moment, you don't really know, if it's 2 rounds or 1 round or 2 phases or not, and you have to be really in the sport to understand it. And I think we should try to work on that for the future to make it more interesting for a wider audience.
I think, as we've just said, the most important issue, in my view, is within contamination of the sport. I think many different things need to be looked at. I think security in stables, how stables are cleaned before they're put up at shows, maybe testing on hay that is getting provided to you as athletes for the horses, hay, water. I think these things have to come in, and I think, I think this is the most important thing in our sport right now that really has to be addressed and really looked at, because there's too many cases coming out, as you've said, about things.
I definitely think that controlled substances has to be the most important issue, along with footing. I think at the top shows, and at any show, footing should be also number 1, alongside then with FEI shows having, having the stabling and all of that very clean and controlled, so we don't get, tested and then test positive for something that we didn't give. But I think those 2 would be my number 1 and 2 concerns for every horse show.
I think within our sport, the most important issues are the common contamination of the horses and the Nations Cup series. Both are very hard, much talked about situations. The cross-contamination of the horse is a very hard situation to tackle. The horses are athletes, but they're not like runners or they're animals. They travel around the world, where as riders not in control of their every move, with the stabling, transport to the venues, and also them eating grass and living a natural horse life. It's very hard to control every environment that they're in, and the new rules that are coming all the time make it more and more difficult for riders to keep control and to keep the welfare of the horse in priority. And also then the Nations Cup series is finding it difficult, in my opinion, to keep current with the modern day sport. It's still here in Rome yesterday, incredible sport to watch and people really enjoy to see, but for the general public to understand why Great Britain, for instance, did not have a team here on this Nations Cup, but we're allowed to go to another one. It's very difficult to follow, and with the prize money that's available within the sport globally now, it's very hard to get the best horses, the best riders, and the owners to allow the horses to come to these types of competitions.
I think for our sport in today's world, we have to look forward as to how we're going to handle contaminations being viewed as a positive doping test. When we have food contamination, incriminating riders as dopers in the sport is very sad for me to see, only to later have the story be revoked that actually they are innocent and it was a food contamination is too late, and a lot of damage has already been done to the rider's reputation, the horse's reputation, and to the reputation of our sport. So I'm hoping that we can find a solution for better testing that's more accurate to the reality of caring for these horses and all of the elements that we are not always able to control, and have that look forward to actually testing for things that have an effect on the horse's performance in amounts that are realistic for the sport we're competing in today.
I think the most important is actually for the moment what we talked about before, the contamination, that the FEI and vets and everyone involved tried to find a good solution for that. So we can just enjoy our sport and keep it definitely clean, and yeah, so I really hope that they find a good solution for it.